back to Living the Next Chapter. I have an author with me today. Charles Matheus is joining us, surrounded by boxes, on his way to make a big move from across the country, from Arizona to New York State. And we talk a little bit about the move that's happening and what's coming, and about his book, where he chats with us about leadership and masculinity. Very interesting conversation. We met, we met via, I think it was a Facebook group or something. And it was really interesting to talk to Charles, and we've hit it off right away. Got some laughs in there as well. But the content that Charles shares with us in this podcast episode, really, really good. We also shared it over on our new podcast, starting over Father's Day weekend, called Dad Space. So that's a second podcast. So you'll hear us mention that while we do the recording. But here's an episode for you, Living the Next Chapter. Charles Matheus. We're going to talk about leadership and masculinity, a great topic here for Father's Day weekend that's coming up. Hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. It's so good to have everyone back again. We have another great guest. We always have these great guests, which is kind of a theme. And today we have a guest who's got an interesting story we're going to tell off the top. We're going to talk about a book. We're going to talk about moving. We're going to talk about amazing leadership and masculinity. We have a guest here today. Charles is with me. Charles, say hello to everybody. Nice to see you. Welcome.
Hey, everybody. Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much for having me, David. You and I kind of just stumbled across one another and in Podmatch or Matchmaker or something like that. And I think we got a lot in common, and we got a lot to talk about. So it's really great to be here.
It's great when you can cross paths with somebody on a journey who has a story to tell. And in our pre-interview chats and stuff and back and forth, you shared a little bit about some stuff that's happening in your family, some changes that are happening. So can we touch on that right off the top? It's really interesting. I'm following this with great curiosity.
Yeah, it's a cross-country move. My wife and I live in central Arizona in a little city called Prescott, Arizona, and we are joining together with her parents to create an intergenerational household to, give them some more time to live in a home rather than being sent to a home. And we're moving cross country to Utica, New York, a former mill town, used to be a rundown town that's experiencing a resurgence, a rebirth a little bit. And, we're leaving a really hot housing market. So we have some resources that we're going to be able to carry with us. We're selling a house here and buying a less expensive place there. And we're taking the train, after tremendous deliberation about how do we get 4 people, 3 cats, 2 households full of stuff, and a car across the country. We're like, we can rent an RV and everybody travel together with the cats. We can fly. We can, take the slow boat to China, and what we actually finally, Kelly and I couldn't decide. My wife and I, we're taking a lot of ownership over how this goes. But we couldn't decide which way to go. And we finally put all the options on a whiteboard and took it to the elders, took it to Kelly's parents. And we had little infographics of, how expensive each one was and, what the COVID risk for each one was and how complex each option was, because we just could, if you can't decide, and this is actually something that I learned from outdoor leadership, a little bit of divergence. My background is in guiding young adults and kids and all kinds of folks on long multi-day adventures in the Grand Canyon, in the deserts of Joshua Tree, mountains all over the world. And what I discovered in those situations, in those experiences, is if the leader team on a backpacking trip, if the designated leaders can't decide on a particular option, whatever it is, what to have for dinner or which particular trail to take, it means that all of the options are okay.
Yeah,
because the experts can't decide between them, so it must mean that at least the 2 or 3 that we're considering are okay.
Yeah.
And then you can just turn it over to the group and say, well, what do you guys want to do? And then some other solution will emerge. And that's, I coach parents to do that. I coach executives to do that with their teams. It's like, when you can't decide, sometimes the best thing to do is to turn it over to the group. So we turned it over to the people who were, ostensibly taking care of these a couple of parents. And they're like, we want to go by train. They want to have a cross-country train adventure. So at the end of June, we're going to hand the cats over to somebody else, hand the car over to somebody else. They're going to transport that, and we're going to take the train from Winslow, Arizona, and we actually get to spend the night before in an old Harvey house. The Harvey company sort of worked alongside the Topeka and Atchison and Santa Fe railroads to build these hotels kind of one day apart along the main line for tourists to stay in along the way. And this hotel is a renovated Harvey house. So we were already getting some history and some adventure. We get to spend the night there and kind of roll from our rooms onto the tracks the next day at 5 a.m, take the train to Chicago and then switch trains and follow along the coast of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario and end up in Utica, New York.
So before you go, are you going to go stand on the corner of Winslow, Arizona?
Probably. Yeah, there's a big, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a monument there and you can get your picture taken and all that stuff. Yeah. I grew up in Arizona and I was just thrilled that there was a song that had, even mentioned Arizona. Yeah.
That's amazing. So what I loved is we were chatting. I already know the answer to this, but the listener doesn't know the answer to this question. But the house that you bought, tell me, how great is it? Like, how's the backyard? Are the rooms the right size? How does it feel when you walk through that home? Is it something that you just feels like home when you walk through that front door? Did you carry your wife across the threshold?
We bought it over Zoom, David. We've never been there. We bought it over Zoom. Just like something from, just like a piece of equipment from Amazon we bought it over Zoom. Our real estate agent, walked through with his phone and peeked in all the corners and climbed up into the attic with his phone and turned his flashlight on so we could see it and poked around in the basement. And we are just sort of putting ourselves out there with a lot of trust in the people in the community of Utica. We haven't been there to visit it, but we've talked to some people and I think we're putting, I'm not very woo-woo. I'm not all about the secret. I don't necessarily believe that all I have to do is, believe in something and it will manifest. But I do feel like I do recognize, not just feel like, I do recognize that my wife, Kelly, and I are coming from a place of curiosity and openness and acceptance and flexibility and belief in one another. And that, I think, engenders sort of curiosity in return and the willingness to support in return from the other people that we talk to, over the phone or by Zoom in this new community. And I believe they're going to want to help take care of us. So I've been interviewing for jobs and consulting gigs out there, and everybody that I talk to just sounds wonderful. So, interview me again in 6 months and I might say, oh, David, don't tell all your listeners, do not buy a house over Zoom. Do not do that. So we might want to check back in, but so long as my wife and I like each other, in 6 months, so long as we're still, happy with one another, then we're okay.
What an amazing adventure. I'm again, like I said at the beginning, I'm following this with great curiosity and interest. So looking forward to all this. And I think we talked about, like, you're going to be documenting this to some degree because this is a pretty significant change for you and your family and your cat and everything, right? So it's a big change. Right. So, are you doing something just to kind of capture all this in your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm taking a little or a little second long video clip every day. So we're going to create a little quick video of it for sure. But also, one of the ways that it's showing up is that when I do a weekly video for my clients and leads and the people who follow me, I do a weekly kind of walk and talk video, go for a hike. I've been talking about thresholds, and thresholds are a psychological concept that comes from depth psychology and soul work. The idea that we can and should take time to acknowledge when we change from one state to another, one way of being to another, recognize actual occurrences in our lives for moments to take a pause and say, I'm going to become a different person. I'm going to step over this threshold. And what has happened before is going to be different than what is going to be happening in the future. And so, that's part of a rite of passage. And I used to run rite of passage weekends for teenage boys and for adult men. And we talk about the threshold moment when you step from your old life into your new life and consciously leave some things behind that weren't working for you, or at least you want to set them aside for now. Some thoughts about yourself, some limiting beliefs, some trauma, whatever it is, leave that behind for a moment and go into a different space where maybe there's some, an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for learning, maybe even an opportunity for healing. So this move for me and my wife and everybody associated, it is absolutely a threshold moment. I cannot be the person who I am now in Utica. I don't want to be the Prescott Charles in Utica. That wouldn't make sense, because the Prescott Charles really likes, prickly pear syrup, and there's not going to be prickly pear syrup in Utica. I talk about how, we don't eat a lot of pizza, but Utica is all about pizza. So we're going to have to decide which is our favorite pizza in Utica. I'm not going to try and resist that. That would keep us apart from everybody. And also not just in that kind of funny way about food preference, but this is an opportunity. Rites of passage can happen anytime through life. A lot of people just kind of focus on the rite of passage that happens for 13 or 14-year-olds, whether it's a bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, graduating high school, getting hazed into a fraternity, those are all kind of rites of passage, some positive, some not. But rites of passage happen throughout our lives. And this journey, this physical journey across the country, and this emotional and logistical journey into a new life is an opportunity for me to have a rite of passage, and an opportunity for me to reimagine how I want to spend the last 30 years, if everything goes well and my heart keeps ticking, the last 30 years of my life, or at least the next 10. Let's make some decisions about how I'm going to live into a larger life and serve my family and serve my community and serve that region and serve the world. So I'm not going to be the same kind of person that I have been, especially through COVID here in Arizona. I'm looking forward to being a different person and talking to other people about what are your threshold moments like? Mm-hmm. And I think, when it comes to business and institutions, I saw a lot of institutions and business teams not recognizing COVID as a threshold, not being able to say, okay, we're going to have to be different than we were before. There's been some great examples of organizations that were really different. There's a local nonprofit here that was a community theater and recognized that they weren't going to be able to put people in rooms, staring at a stage during COVID. And so they had to shut down all the productions. But they realized that they had a database of thousands of people in the community who had donated, who'd volunteered, who'd been engaged with that community theater. And those people probably had needs. And so they put their volunteers to work, actually calling all of their people on their database to say, what do you need during this time? What do you need during this time of lockdown and isolation? And they started delivering groceries. They started delivering meds from pharmacies. They started even doing performances, songs outside of people's homes to help keep their spirits up. So they managed to recognize we can't be the way we were. We have to be something different. And now that, live theater is back again, now they have another threshold to cross with some intention and thoughtfulness.
So before we jump into our topic today around your book, I was going to do a shout out to any pizza owners in Utica that, Charles and his family, Kelly, are on their way. So his contact information will be in the podcast if you want to drop by with a free pizza for Charles and Kelly to try so they can make up their mind. They've already bought a home over Zoom, so we don't want to buy pizza over Zoom. So we'll have all that contact info in there, and you can just drop off and get in touch with Charles and Kelly. And I'm sure they would appreciate any free pizza that you'd like to donate. So thank you to everyone listening in Utica. Thank you. So I just want to put that in there for you, Charles, because
Thanks for that, David. I appreciate that.
you did ask me to kind of plug you some pizza. I remember we talked. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's switch gears, Charles.
I'll Venmo you that $20 that we talked about.
That's amazing. Okay, so let's switch gears to the book. Now you've kind of alluded to a little bit of your work with men in your career. We're going to dual purpose this podcast because we're going to talk about the book side of it, but we'll also have a new podcast coming out called Dad Space, and it's all for men and finding their place in life as a father, and whether you're a stepfather, a grandfather, wherever that is, but stepping up as a man within a family structure and being a great example to your children and to yourself, to your spouse, what all that's included, right? So I'm curious. I'm listening with two ears, two different sides of the message today, and looking forward to sharing this message, a portion of this message with the audience. So first of all, let's go over the title of the book and maybe a little background to the book, and then we can kind of jump off from there.
Yeah, I love it. So the book is Leadership and Masculinity, Embracing New Strength.
There it is.
I don't know if are we on video recording here? Yep. And it hit number one new release in Men's Health and hot new release in HR and business. So it's kind of straddling that divide. So it's kind of it's being dual purpose, just like this podcast is.
Nice.
And it came. I've got a 35-year career in education and in the last dozen years, really focused on working with men and boys. And I, like I said, ran a mentoring program for teen youth here in Prescott, Arizona, and got involved with, kind of spreading it around the United States. Boys to Men Mentoring Network is in dozens and dozens of cities around the world. And what we found when we talked to these boys, 75% of these boys were living, they weren't living full time with their biological dad. So they either had a stepdad or divorce, or their dad was incarcerated, or their dad was dead, whatever it was. And so you kind of get a sense of how much father loss there is. And I think that's a term, I think it was Michael Mead coined that term, father loss, as being kind of endemic in the lives of a lot of boys. Whether or not the father is really lost, he might just be working really hard all the time. Or he might be emotionally distant because that's how his father was. Doesn't know how to be emotionally connected. And somebody asked me the other day, like, what was the number one thing you heard from these boys? What was the most common thing you heard? And the most common thing we heard was they wanted to honor their fathers. These aren't the words they used, but they wanted to honor their fathers, and be as much like them as possible, even if their dad was a terrible person, even if their dad was, selling drugs, abandoning women, abandoning children. That was kind of the lifestyle that they felt was there for them because that's what their dad did. And so it just really puts how clearly, even if a dad isn't around, what a huge impact he has on a boy. And it also just really illuminates the trap that I talk about in the book, not necessarily, but the trap that I talk about in the book about something that we've learned to call the man box, right? This set of rules that say men are supposed to be stoic and not emotional. You can be angry. That's allowed, but nothing really else. You're supposed to, get as many women as possible. You're supposed to be, straight and not gay. You're not supposed to be even joyful or, that gets called flamboyant or whatever. You're supposed to earn money, but not do caretaking. You're supposed to be forceful, but not creative. You're not really supposed to listen. The leadership style that you're supposed to put out there is my way or the highway, power over, win, lose kind of stuff. And all of those rules of the man box really prevent the kind of relational abilities. We don't call them soft skills anymore, right? Let's call them relational abilities that allow men to be amazing parents, amazing partners, and amazing leaders. it's like maybe the hierarchical my way or the highway dad or boss, maybe that worked in the 19th century and the 20th century, but it doesn't work now. That's not what the 21st century is calling for. It's calling for people who can listen, who can express curiosity, who can admit mistakes. A dad who can say, wow. And this was something that my dad did. This had a big impact on me. My dad had a little bit of a temper. He was raised by an old school, stoic Portuguese man, blacksmith. And my dad tried not to be that way, but every once in a while he would lose his temper a little bit. And I got spanked. This was in the 70s, but then he would come down and apologize. And that's a little bit, there's kind of an abusive, style in there to like hit somebody and then apologize. But the apology still meant a lot to me, and to see how much he wanted to be close to me and to, ask for forgiveness from me with tears in his eyes. And it wasn't totally codependent, because he was truly a loving, caring dad, but he just lost his temper every now and then. So he was really struggling. And now I hope parents, my age and younger, I'm in my 50s. I'm hoping parents my age and younger, dads especially, can even create a little bit more space between their temper and their acting out and their ability to just be there for their kids and admit, like, I got really angry at you, Dave. I was so frustrated and I just snapped, and I'm working on not reacting when I get that angry. It's really hard. I'm doing more meditation, but I'm going to do what I can. To be able to just apologize to your kids, I think, is really powerful.
One of the lessons I remember when my kids were little, I have 3 kids, was, you work hard as a dad and as a parent to, supply for your family and give your family what they need. And your family doesn't always see the extras that you do. You do work long hours, you would do the little extra here and there. You also sacrifice, you don't spend money on yourself. You spend it on your family, where you would love to go and buy the latest whatever, but you just know that money needs to go to food or school or whatever. And, I would buy something for the family, and sometimes out of recklessness, my kids could damage it or break it or back the van into a post. And, you're like, A, I don't have the money to fix this. B, in your recklessness, you've now caused me financial burden. And in that moment, you become angry because it's out of your hands. But somebody said to me when I was a young father that think about what matters most in this situation: the item that was damaged or the person that is in front of you. What's worth more? What is really worth more to you at the end of the day? Is it your relationship with your son or daughter? Or is it the door of the van or this item or this thing, because we get so focused on the thing, even as a parent trying to supply and be this, give you the things you need, that when they get damaged, you're just like, have you have any idea how hard I work for that thing? Right. But you're looking in the eyes of your child, then they're welling up and they know they did something wrong. Yeah. Don't value the things, value your children, value that relationship. And that was one of the hardest things I learned as a young father. And again, nobody was there to teach me that. And I wish there was, right? And that's something I probably could have put into place sooner than learning it as my kids got older and making mistakes in the process.
Right. And the scenario you're describing, I know a lot of men don't want to feel like they're passive, or that they're just letting things slide or get away with stuff. That's not what's really called for. It's really, kind of restorative relational parenting, right? And I can tell a specific example from my mentoring experience. We were running this rite of passage weekend, and we used peer leaders, slightly older boys, 16, 17-year-old boys who'd been through the rite of passage, who'd been working with us and who were ready to take some leadership. And to help provide the bridge between us old guys and the younger kids. And we found out on one of these weekends that some of our favorite, they were called J-men because they were on their journey. They were journeymen. Our favorite J-men had smuggled like a homemade vape pen, and some tobacco or something else. They basically brought contraband onto the weekend. And we brought them all into one room. And we, as the adult males in charge of this weekend, we just started expressing our feelings in the way that you were talking about, like, yeah, but that van door, that's going to cost me. And this is the number of hours that I'm going to have to work. And I feel so frustrated. We just explained about, like, we trusted you, and, this endangers us. This endangers our reputation. This endangers the reputation of the organization. This might mean that we can't bring kids up here anymore. If somebody found out about this and really raised a ruckus, that's what you're putting all at risk. And as you said, these 16, 17-year-old boys are just crying. They're bawling because they've disappointed us, and they're seeing the bigger consequences of their decision. They were just thinking really selfishly. They were thinking about fun. They were thinking about, camaraderie. They were, kind of doing the I'll do it if you'll do it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any agenda. We're just like, we just need you to know what we feel about this.
Mm-hmm.
And later I was talking to one of the boys who I knew had a difficult relationship with his dad. And I said, Miles, how you doing after that? Because he'd been one of the ones crying really hard. And he said, I don't know how to feel. Normally when my parents yell at me, I just slam my door and tell them that they're jerks. But you guys didn't. Now I think I feel guilty. He'd never felt guilty before because his dad was always being mean. So he didn't ever have to take any responsibility for his actions in his own heart and in his own head. So by doing this kind of restorative process of just telling them, what we felt about it. And I think we put in place they took accountability, which is really important. They didn't continue to lie to us. That would have been really hard if they'd continued to lie to us. But so they took accountability, and we put in some sort of reparation. I can't remember what exactly what was it. It's not even important, right? Mm-hmm. Whether they paid for it in some way or owned up to it in front of other people. I don't even remember what it was. But what was important is that our relationships between the men who all we got a stronger relationship. So you can kind of put that in the context of, a family, the parents actually get stronger together when you do it this way. And our relationship with those boys was incredibly powerful. I went to high school graduation for all those kids and got to, see them off to college and community college and all of that. So when we can, and this can be challenging for men because, again, the man box says, the way to be strong is to be loud and sure and emotionless. You ran the van into that post. You are in trouble. I am angry. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what you feel. That's not what I'm interested in. And you are going to pay for it. And you're grounded forever. Mm-hmm. But when we step out of the man box and allow ourselves to be more emotional, to express sadness, to express frustration, to express disappointment, and to express I don't know what to do, to express unsure. You ran into the pole. We had said that if anything like that happened, that you were going to lose all your car privileges. But I know you really care about driving yourself to high school. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
What do you think should happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's And as I look back at how that unfolded for our family, I got quiet for a long time because I didn't want to say the wrong thing as a dad. Because in those moments, because I know I can go rewind in my mind times when I've disappointed my family or my parents, and I had the talk or I had the moment, right? And that stays with you for the rest of your life, 100%. And I'm in this moment looking at my child going, okay, what I say in this moment will stick with this person and shape their thoughts for the rest of their life. Do not be careless. Don't be quick to anger. Yeah. All of these things are in my mind because I can take you back to that moment from my childhood. And it's overwhelming sometimes. The influence you have as a father and a husband and a parent, and the stage that you live your life on in front of your family, right?
Yes.
You never get to go behind the stage or behind the curtain. You're always up on stage. And in the good times, the bad times, you're always there. They look to you, and they, when bad things happen, they're waiting for it, right?
Yeah.
Good things happen. They want to see how you celebrate. But you're talking about, if you're just in that man box you mentioned, and you're just that constant unplugged and distant person, I don't think that's a healthy balance in life, right?
No.
So how do we find that healthy balance?
Yeah. I talk about in the book 3 steps to getting out of the man box, and it's directed at male leaders, but I think, obviously a dad is a leader.
Yeah.
And you're a leader of yourself. You're a leader, ideally a co-leader with your other parent. But the first step is just to begin creating awareness, and the way you described your own internal process, the self-awareness you had in that moment of like, these are the things I don't want to do. I don't want to overreact. I don't want to react too quickly, et cetera, et cetera. Building that kind of awareness is really important. And for men in particular to start extending their circle of compassion and awareness beyond themselves, but, out to women and girls, out to people of color, out to LGBTQI folks, becoming educated about the whole spectrum. And as a dad, you don't necessarily know when you've got a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, where your kid is going to head. So can you, create an environment that is welcoming to however that kid shows up in the world? So just building awareness about our own reactions, being able to take breaths, being able to, I recommend, mindful breathing, exercise, spending time in nature with yourself and with others to lower our reactivity so that we can create a little freedom for ourselves, right? That space between stimulus and response. That's where all the freedom is. It might be tiny. It might be a half a second. That might be all the freedom we have at the start. But so, building that awareness is step 1, and asking for help is step 2. And this is a radical thing for men to do. And I'm so glad you're starting a podcast for men and dads, because the man box says, don't talk about it. Don't talk about how difficult parenting is. Don't talk about how difficult being a man is. Don't talk about your successes as a dad. Don't talk about anything except for, sex and sports. And, you're not even really supposed to talk about money. You can talk about cars. So when we reach out and ask for help, we kind of blow up a bunch of the expectations of the man box. We blow up the don't ask for help thing. We blow up the, you got to go it alone, that all leaders, all powerful men are lone wolf guys. That's just not true. And we start to build a community, and we start to remember those relational skills that we got talked out of when we were little. We remember how to express emotions, how to say, okay, it's not just anger that I feel frustration. Or it's not just happy that I feel connected or excited, like getting a little bit finer grained about what our emotions are. And we get better at listening. And especially in a men's group, we can blow off a little steam and then go back to our family, our kids, our workplace, whatever it is, and with a little less reactivity and a little, maybe some coaching from somebody else, or maybe just, the relief from, kind of an emotional or psychic kind of weight. We can let that go in a group of men who we know will get us because we're expressing ourselves emotionally and openly. And then it's safer to go back and try something different with our kids or our parents or our wives or our workmates.
Okay, Charles, so I have a curveball for you.
Excellent.
You ready?
Sports metaphor. Here we go. Couple of guys. Let's do some sports metaphors.
Steps up to the plate. Here we go. What have you adapted from your book in your marriage?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So actually, it's kind of the other way around. It's like my marriage really affected this book.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
One of the biggest experiences, most memorable experiences in my life around stepping out of the man box occurred when I first started dating my wife, Kelly. We were living an hour apart when we started dating. And so we spent a lot of time on the phone and a lot of time on Facebook Messenger and, flirting via text and all that. But after about a couple, and it was really intense. It was really good. The relationship was really hitting on all cylinders. But after a couple months, I started not responding right away when she texted me, or sometimes not picking up when she called. And I didn't understand what was happening, but fortunately I had a men's group. I could go to my guys and be like, I don't know what's happening. I'm pulling back. I'm not there for her. And, they didn't necessarily say anything to me, but I realized that I was frightened of this intimacy that was showing up, that was calling for more of me than I thought I had. This relationship was so powerful. And so the next time Kelly called me, I can remember I was standing right out on the porch right over there. She called me and she said, "How is everything?" I said, "I'm scared." And Kelly, bless her, this is what made it all work. She didn't try and make me feel better. She didn't try and make me feel defensive. She didn't get defensive thinking, "Oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Why is this guy scared?" She didn't make it about anything other than what I just said. And she just said, "Okay." And that acceptance of my, kind of secret feeling, that acceptance by her, that secret feeling made me fall in love with her even more and to feel so safe. All my fear went away because she was so clearly there for me.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's, kind of the book is about, that the rewards for stepping out of the man box, right? I put down my shield. I dropped my solo lone wolf man thing and expressed vulnerability to this woman who I was just coming to know. And instead of being shunned or being told that I was broken and needed fixing, I just got acceptance, and I got more, and I found more capacity to be engaged in the relationship. So that's my big message in the book. Wow. Is that when we step outside of the man box, and you can always go back, but when we step out a little bit as parents, as bosses, as leaders, as change makers in the world, notice what shows up for you. We're told that if we're vulnerable, we're at risk. We're told if we try and share power, we'll lose status. We're told if we try and create win-wins, people will take advantage of us. We're told if we try and include more people that, again, we'll lose status. We won't be as powerful. But every time in my life now where I find a way to ignore that advice from the man box, to ignore those rules, I get rewards. When I'm curious, when I express curiosity or unknown, I get information. When I work to create win-wins, I get more power. You and I are creating a win-win. We're going to do a couple of different collaborative podcasts. It's going to be great. And all that's going to show up is more capacity. We're going to impact more people. More people are going to hear us. So every time I step outside of the man box, I get a little reward. Now, sure, sometimes when I step out of the man box on Twitter, for example, I get called all kinds of interesting, nasty names. I got called cuck the first time about 2 years ago. I'm like, all right, I finally arrived on Twitter. I've been told that I'm a cuckold. Excellent. Good. But that doesn't affect me. I think, and we need leaders and we need parents who are willing, male parents, fathers, who are willing to do that, because like I said earlier, the old ways, the old strength model doesn't work in the 21st century. Our kids don't want it. Our wives and partners don't want it. Yeah. And our employees and business partners don't want it either. They want this new strength of win-win, power with inclusion and vulnerability. That's what everybody's looking for. That's how people know that they can trust us. That's how people know that we've got their backs. That's where we get creativity and the ability to pivot from.
Wow. Yeah. So much, Charles. Like when I hit record today, I didn't know where we were going with this, but you're bringing so much amazing information. Like, this is so practical, and if we just can even apply an ounce of what we've chatted about so far, we will see significant change in our families, in our personal life, our relationships. There's so much here, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like I'm seriously, I'm just soaking it all in, Charles. And I'm going to have to listen to this podcast many times because there's so much in here that I need myself. And your willingness to make time to do this today is just, it's exciting for me. And I hope that people listening are just like connecting with this message and, you know, and are eager for more, you know.
Yeah, I hope so too. And even if there are men out there listening who are feeling a little resistant, like, oh, that sounds soft, or that sounds weak, or that sounds whatever. It's like, okay, go ahead. That message of resistance is natural. You've been told for your whole life that being strong looks like this. And I'm telling you, no, it looks like this completely different thing. So it's natural that you might want to resist, that you might want to question it. And I just encourage anybody listening to take a moment to breathe and to lower your reactivity and to focus on what you really want. And the way that you talked about, Dave, about, you know, what do you really want in your interaction with your kid? You know, do you want to be right?
Yeah.
You know, or do you want to be in a relationship?
Yeah, that's huge.
Do you want to walk that daughter down the aisle with just like a big grin on her face and tears everywhere? Or do you want to be really right about who damaged that van?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Charles, has my wife sent off like messages for you to answer these things? Charles, when you talk to my husband, can you talk about this, and this? You're like, it's really kind of crazy. It's like you're in the room with me. Well, you are on Zoom, and you can apparently buy a house on Zoom now too, which I've never known.
Apparently.
And free pizza is coming your way. But there's so many things that you're saying that are just directly impacting me today. And I'm spellbound. I am. I'm enjoying this. I really am.
Fantastic. We're meant to meet.
See, okay, so let's please not say this is the only time we're going to talk about this topic, because I think that we have not even scratched the surface of the depth of the knowledge and experience that you bring to this topic, but to go deeper into your book and put more focus on the book. I would love to have a part 2 after you've done this amazing move and adventure that you and your family are doing. But I would definitely like to circle back because, like I said, I need to invest some time in this book and come back with 150 questions for you because there's so much in here, right?
Great. And I'd love to tell the story at a future time about how I came to write the book and what technique I used, because it's a little different than most book writing techniques. And I'm guessing that your listeners would be really curious to hear about it, because I was resistant to being a writer for a long time. I said, I'm not a writer. I can't write a book. I won't write a book. I had never written anything longer than 11 pages. And then a project that was supposed to be just a little 40-page kind of extended pamphlet became a 145-page, kind of manifesto. So I'd love to talk about how it got there.
Okay, so we're definitely going to circle back for a round 2 then in the future.
Sure, okay. You bet.
So Charles, what is the best way for people to connect with you pre and post move? How can people get into your world and follow up further?
Great. Well, what I'd like to do, I'd like to just do a special offer for listeners to your podcast. I've created a splash page that they can go to, and it's just charlesmatthews.com /book. So
okay.
CharlesMatthews.com/book. And when you go there, you'll be able to download a free chapter of
nice
leadership and masculinity.
Great. Well, this is a great offer. Yeah. Then people can have a taste of it, and it's available also Amazon, all that as well, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Is it available through your website as well?
No, just through Amazon. Yep.
Okay. Through Amazon. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Search leadership and masculinity, embracing new strength.
Okay.
And I'll send you the link. We can put it in the show notes.
Awesome. I would love that. Anything left, Charles, that we can leave people that are listening, A, as a author, a reader, or B, a podcast listener who is a dad, a father? Yeah. How can we end this off in a positive way and an inspirational way?
Yeah. I think for men in particular, the 21st century is calling for us. Women are calling us forward. Our kids are calling us forward. The people who we supervise are calling us forward into a really purposeful life. And yeah, it can be really scary because the old ways that we were taught aren't working, but we have an opportunity. We never really lost our ability to connect. We never really lost our ability to emote. That was what I got so clearly from working with teenage boys, is we just gave them a little bit of freedom and a little bit of opportunity to express their full authentic selves, and it just comes pouring out. So it's there for you guys. So find a way, men, to find a place that's safe enough for you to be a little bit vulnerable. Find a place that's safe enough for you to be more authentic, and you might have a beautiful relationship. You might have a beautiful marriage, and that might be a place where you get to be authentic and whole, but find some other guys. Find a men's group, go to mankindproject.org, go to mensgroup.com. You can find online groups, go ahead and reach out, ask for help, reach out to me. I can hook you up with other resources if you're not finding what you need. This is our time. 21st century's calling.
Excellent. Charles, thank you so much for your time. Good luck in the move. I know you've got everything well organized, planned out. I hope the cat, is it a cat or cats? Three cats, actually. Three cats. I hope all three cats have the best trip of their life.
Yeah.
And you guys arrive safe and happy, and you can find your house that you've never been to. And there's pizza waiting on the front porch.
Oh, what a vision. What a vision. I love it. Thank you, David. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Charles. Again, everyone check out Charles, check out his website. And we're so pleased, again, Charles, the amount of knowledge and information and thoughtfulness of how you've been presenting today in this podcast. I am very grateful, and I'm looking forward to round 2 so much.
So appreciative for the opportunity and the new relationship with you.
Excellent. Okay.
Great.
All the best to you and your wife. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave.
Hi, guys. This is Dave from Living the Next Chapter, a podcast designed to connect authors and audiences. We're always on the lookout for our next interview. If you're an author, a publisher, and you have a book, whether you're just starting, whether you're halfway through writing, or it's all done and you want to tell the world, that's why we're here at Living the Next Chapter. Get in touch with us through livingthenextchapter.com, contact us, and let's set up some time together to discuss your book, to discuss your project, and how we can get you on the show. My name is Dave, and I would love to speak to you. So go to livingthenextchapter.com, and let's get over there together and discuss all the great things that you're up to as an author, as a publisher, and let's grow your audience together. Join us on livingthenextchapter.com for great authors and an audience that's eager to hear about what you're up to as an author and a publisher. Contact us today, and let's get your book out in front of others. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.